Ben, you look exhausted. What's going on?
Yeah, I realize good old anger.
Oh, our
Good old, not any
friend.
kind of anger, not any kind of anger, repressed anger.
Oh,
The
even
good old
better.
repressed anger has been weighing on me, and uh, it's funny because I I know I'm dealing with repressed anger usually when I am feeling a stuckness in my body. First of all, my heart doesn't feel open. It
Mhm,
feels like there's a protective shield around my heart.
mhm,
And there's a stuckness. And this stuckness is just, it's uncomfortable in my body. It makes me feel uneasy
mhm,
and kind of disconnected from myself. And I can't name the emotion. It feels like I can't quite name what it is. And that to me is the sign that I'm dealing with repressed anger. There's some part of me that is not expressing emotionally, and that's been the most difficult emotion for me to navigate in my life has been anger. Yeah.
mhm. I'm really impressed of your awareness and level of awareness about that because I also believe and experience that anger is like a blanket. It's a blanket emotion. It's not
Mm.
just one emotion. It's a huge thing that we can just go through and unfold. And I mean, I could be angry because I'm hungry. You could be angry because, as you said, you have a repressed, old, tired, unresolved emotion happening there. So, but we both will say, "I'm angry,"
Yeah.
or express
Yes.
our anger. So it's not a it's a blanket. So you want to tell us more about what do you do? What happens when you discover that the anger is there?
Yeah, and just to build on what you said, because it affects the answer that I give here,
Hmm.
is that yeah, I understand anger as a blanket emotion as well, and that
Mm,
anger for me, it's always covering something else up.
right.
It's protecting me from feeling something else. And depending on how strong that anger is or how uh, disconnected I am from myself, which is how I experience my repressed anger,
Mhm,
that tells me the significance of what is underneath for
mhm,
me, and the significance in terms of it being an emotion or a memory or experience that I have done my best to avoid feeling, and that is very difficult to experience. So,
yeah.
what do I do? What my process is? We've talked about this before. Creating space is really important,
Mhm,
and being inquisitive and curious about what this is.
mhm,
Because the perspective that I have that it's all happening for me. Everything is leading to me becoming a better version of myself, me coming closer to the truth of who I really am. That's the paradigm that I hold. And so I see all of this as an opportunity for growth, for
mhm,
expansion, to actually expand the love that I um, can experience for myself and for life. And so I'm curious and I ask questions. I ask,
mhm.
what is this anger wanting to tell me? Or what is it doing? What is it wanting to protect me from? Actually, depending on how much I'm feeling it, sometimes the first step is to move the energy somehow.
Yeah.
So yesterday morning in meditation, it hit me that I have this repressed anger, and there's a lot of energy. When it hits me, I start to feel an upsurge of
Mhm,
energy. Like
mhm.
anger is a lot of energy. So to just
Yeah.
hold it is very difficult. The energy does want to move. There's a lot of power in it. For me, I came downstairs. I love to play music. and I love playing the djembe. It's a hand drum, hand percussion. And so I just went into a flow, and I just was just drumming, just letting that energy flow into the music and just drumming. And then I picked up my ukulele and I started jamming on my ukulele, and I started humming at first, whistling, and then beatboxing as I was playing. And as I'm doing this, there's an intensity actually to my playing, but the intensity is being channeled through into this music, which I actually find enjoyable. It's not an unenjoyable process. I feel the energy of the anger as I'm doing it, right? But it's moving, and it's moving in a way that I actually find enjoyable and beautiful. And so that was one way for me to move some of the stuck energy, because when there's too much stuck energy in me, I feel like I can't do anything. And then the inquiry comes. So now there's a little bit more of an opening. There's a little bit more space, right? I still feel its energy. And I go into inquiry, and it dawned on me by the end of yesterday what it was, that it was related to this one family member. And it was it was triggered, I should say, by this one family member. But really what it's about is it's an old wound. This family member, this relationship is just a it's just a symbol, or it's a mirror of something else that occurred for me long ago when I was a child. And so I'm in the midst of it, and I started to feel some of that energy, which is there's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of sadness that I still feel in my chest. There's fear. There's a lot of fear as well.
Fear of
And
what?
I'm not sure. I would say the fear, maybe the fear of feeling that sadness, the pain of that sadness, whatever is there. Yeah, the fear of going into whatever's emotions are underneath. Huh? So that's where I'm at. And then I continue to be as compassionate and gentle with myself as I can. I remind myself that it's all happening for me. Depending on what I'm going through, we talked about the physical touch stuff. I do physical touch with myself, listening to music as well that supports me through my process helps a lot. I have this playlist. It's called my decompressed playlist. And this playlist it's just a lot of music that's gentle, tender, loving, soul nourishing. And music really helps me connect with those more difficult emotions, and to hold them and allow them to move. So those are some of the things that I do as part of my process.
And where are you at right now with the anger that you identified?
I don't feel it as strongly. There's some still there. Now what I'm feeling is I feel a heaviness in my chest. As I mentioned, I feel the sadness and the fear, but it's not fully processed. So where I stand is just continuing to hold space for it, and be inquisitive and curious about what it's trying to show me. So what about you? what's your experience with anger, and what do
Hmm.
you do when it comes up?
Anger is a very old friend of mine. We've been together for a long time, as long as I can remember. But anger has far less hold on me these days. But it still comes and visits no matter where I go, no matter how much I think I have resolved and dissolved. Um, I constantly and regularly receive a visit from my old friend, anger. But for me, the first thing that is really, really vital is to recognize it's there. And I know it sounds like unusual, but sometimes we're so used to it. And you said that anger has a lot of energy. And believe it or not, sometimes we may want that energy. So when I feel inactive, when I feel there's not much happening, out of habit, if nothing else, the good old anger can come and arrive. So recognizing that the anger is there, it's very important to me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then it's literally going where, what do I do with it? Okay, so anger is here. The autopilot and the practiced behavior is to find out whose fault it is. So the
Mm-hmm.
question is who? And normally it must be you, not me,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Co-
So it's a wrong question. Really, comprehension comes next for me. Comprehending that if I'm experiencing it, and I loved what you said, it is happening for me. So I leave the who alone when I'm aware, of course. Sounds like I really know. I don't all the time. I act it out most of the time. That's when you act out.
Mhm.
When I just don't know what's going on. I don't know anger is here. Or if I know anger is here, I think whose fault it is, and usually, as I said, it's somebody else. Or if it is me, then I start blaming.
Mhm.
So who is a wrong answer for me. It doesn't work. Whenever I ask who, wrong question, actually, I meant when I ask who, it's either, damning someone else or damning me, and none of
Mhm.
them really get me to any resolution. So if I'm aware, it really asking what's going on here, like
Mhm.
getting a completely a different picture. It's not the
Mhm.
person that matters, it's the incident that has come to my awareness for me and for growth. So now the person and the details become irrelevant. I look at it from a far, far different perspective. I'm now zooming out on it instead of zooming in on it and analyzing, or even you use the word processing. Processing is a word of my mind, and that doesn't work for me. I need to actually feel it. I
Mhm.
need to let it be and just say, what are you here to tell me? I
Mhm.
literally sit with my anger. It's like, let's come and have a cup of tea together because I know you've got information that is vital for me. What have you come to tell me about?
Mhm.
And then the whole thing changes, and the whole process, as you called it, changes into a much softer and deeper and friendlier kind of experience for me.
Mhm. Do you have a recent example of you dealing with anger and what you discovered from that?
Mm, yes, many. Let me find a good one for you. I, I care for my mother who is in her 90s. And so I'm a caregiver in that moment. I'm completely at her service. I go into service, um, energy and space, and it is beautiful and it is healing and it is rewarding. I can't tell you how many people say, you can hire people to do this. Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Not
say,
the
I
same.
do. But this is so precious for me that there is no money that I will save
Mhm.
will really pay for what I receive.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that happens often. But then a repeated practice behavior of my mother triggers me and takes me back to where I was younger. And I was, in my view, um, harmed by it. So that happens, and immediately I go to anger. And this happened actually about a week ago that uh, my mom wasn't ready, and we had done everything for her to be ready. And I was really crunched with time, and there was no reason for her not to be ready. There was nothing happening. And I found myself in a very angry place. And then anger, I found it in my whole body because I usually ask, where is it? Where am I feeling it? And I can locate it. I can say heart or hands or face, or this was all over my body. It was so strong. It was so all consuming that as late as I was and as difficult as time was in that moment, I had to set myself down and
Wow.
just feel that energy going through
Wow.
my
Wow.
body.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, hello, hi, hi, anger. I need some information. This is just not going to do it. This is just not, we can't do this. That's like, but we have time. Wherever you got to go. I said, I understand that. Believe me, I understand responsibility and time, but you need to tell me what's going on. This can't be. I mean, no matter how late and how unreasonable this behavior was, this just didn't call for this kind of reaction. And I just sat with it, and I started just hugging myself. Then I
Oh,
started
yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
and I just cried for a long time.
Mm.
And the crying was for, how could I hold on to
Mm.
such a strong negative energy for so long?
Mm.
Why?
Mm.
Why did I do that? And I thought, okay, why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? Okay, how? How? It's hard to be a teacher because you got to live by it. You can't
Yep.
just teach and coach. You got
Walk
to
the
live by it.
walk, baby.
Exactly. So I said, okay. What's the right question? How? Okay, that's what I say to people. How work with this? How can I work with this in a
Mm.
different way? And then I realized it brought to my attention, my wonderful anger, that you felt unworthy when you were treated like that, when promises were made and promises were not kept, and you felt like you didn't matter.
Mm.
And I have a long history with that. Goes back when I was not even born.
Mm.
So I thought, okay, I hear you. So you're saying that that's the wound that I haven't healed. And anger
Yeah.
said, got it. You got it, Mitra.
Mm. Wow.
I said, okay, so what do I do now? Because I have to drive my mother and few friends of hers. I have seniors in my car. I have a long way to go. And I just can't go like this. I just can't drive like this. So I made myself a hot tea, and everybody was waiting. Her friends were waiting at their doors. My mother is now waiting for me. And I told her, I just need some time. I'll let you know when I'm
Mm.
ready.
Mm.
So I separated myself. I had the warm drink, and I said, okay, the Mitra in service can show up right now. I'm no longer a child, and this is good for my healing. This is really good for my soul. This is a gift from me. And the moment I went into service mentality, and service, love, compassion, all of them are from same family. People have different names for it, but they're all related. Doesn't matter which one you pick. And service really works for me probably because I do that for my living. I go into service when I'm teaching, when I'm coaching, when I'm speaking. So that's a very familiar place for me. And then I went to service. Mitra was back. The servant Mitra was just so, so happy and ready. And I don't know how long it took, to be honest with you. I didn't time it because I wanted not to time it. I wanted to say, this is important and you do matter. This was one of the ways I said to myself, you matter because I say so, not because of anybody else. And then I just went and I called my mom and then I picked up her friends and I had a great time, took them out, had a
Oh,
fantastic time.
it's beautiful. Wow. 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 You really took me on that journey with you. Thank you. I think it's so beautiful. It reminds me of one of our previous conversations about these subconscious characters.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get identified with it. And what I saw you doing was you got distance from it. You were not no longer blended with the anger. You moved back to
Mhm.
the aware self who is loving, compassionate, caring, who is captain of the ship. And when you're in that place, it's much easier to be like, okay, I have, as my aware self, I have tended to that inner child within me. And now I want to do what brings me great joy, just be of service.
Yes. Yes. And then I was grateful after that. It was so easy to be grateful because it's like a lot of nuts in front of you and you just one nut open and that makes it really easier to walk. I felt like lighter and happier.
Mm.
So I became, I mean, if you told me all these things in the midst of my anger, I would have so like, good, go and write a book about it. I don't think it will work for but
Mm.
I, but I really did that, and it really happened within minutes, and then it
So
was easy.
how long did that whole thing take? Because yeah, how long
Sure.
did it take?
I estimate around half an hour the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, from beginning to the end because I was half an hour late picking up people.
Mm.
But it was interesting that even my upsetness for being late was in the service mentality because these, you know, older women were waiting at their door. And so because I was in service, I got so it looked all innocent, but really what was happening, that was the surface. I could tell you the story in a much better way and you would really dislike my mother. But if I said it in a truthful way, you wouldn't. The surface like level was like I was, picking responsible to pick up all these, elders and she for like changing the color of whatever delayed the whole thing and we were really late and it was really bad, but really what was happening was this had to come, I had called for it to be resolved, and then this was the perfect opportunity because any other time we could be late and it wouldn't matter, and because I was in that mentality of I wouldn't let these elders wait at their door and it was raining, um, so it came packaged really well, but it was really calling me to unfold it for myself and resolve and dissolve it because as I said, my mom is in her 90s and I have limited time to resolve many, many things. I've resolved many, and I've still got many. And so it was that calling, and this was the perfect opportunity for me to get uh, this resolved. But yeah, half an hour, and then I was singing and dancing in the car as I was driving, and had a fantastic time where I took them. And in that moment, I'm not the best partier. I don't attend parties as such. And it was a party they were going to. And I had a great time in that party. I almost knew nobody, but it was fantastic. It was so good. It was all because that opening had occurred.
Mhm.
That like, oh, I feel good had occurred.
Yeah, yes. Relief, opening, reconnecting with your true self, which is
Yes.
joyous, loving,
Yes.
yeah, playful.
Yes. Have fun.
It's amazing how quick that can happen if we give ourselves full permission.
Yes.
See, the mind can be so convincing, right? Your mind was saying, trying to be of service. These women are waiting on me. And it was finding that outside thing to uh, pin the anger to. And it could be so convincing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
the moment we can recognize, okay, this is not about that outside thing, it can become much easier to work through the
Mhm.
emotion now.
Yes, I call it chocolate covered because it's so delicious. You can always pour chocolate over anything and it really tastes good in the beginning. But this really, the chocolate was service, but what was underneath it was, yeah, the lack of resolution in that particular area.
So do you feel that that thing, that childhood wound that you referred to, was healed in that moment? Fully healed?
In that moment, but healed is not, we're always healing. There is no healed in my view.
Mm.
So the question is, am I on the road to healing or am I on unhealing road? So really it's that because I mean, I'm sure they're perfect people, but I haven't met them. I'm definitely not one of them. So it's not like I have healed completely, but it's really, we have wounds and then we have like wounds. I can get a scratch or I can lose my hand. They're all like, create wounds, but the degree of them reduces and maybe they are healed, but I don't experience them as healed. I feel healing and that's enough for me because I don't pursue anything and I don't have any illusions about a perfect life or a perfect human. It actually gets me to where I want to go. I'm less reactive. I'm more healed, and that really really delicious for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what I really hear you saying is I'm just in the moment. Whatever the moment gives me, I work with that, and I'm not thinking about a future time when I'm healed or any of that. It's just being
Yeah.
here and now, and dancing with whatever comes up, and attuning with
Yes.
whatever comes up in me in that moment. And when
Yeah.
we can do that, it can be so beautiful and rewarding, like
Yes.
your experience. Wow. In that
Yeah.
moment of feeling the anger, this intensity, it's very uncomfortable, but you were able to work through it and work through it relatively quickly. And on the other side of that, wow, what are all the blessings, right?
Mm.
The realization about this wounded part of yourself, reconnecting with this part of yourself. And then with that, this opening of love and compassion and tenderness, and then celebration and play.
Yeah.
So
It was perfect
I
setup.
I mean, how beautiful is that? It's juicy. It's
Yes.
beautiful. And
I just wanted to say something
mm,
because I said it and you noticed it, but that was a very important point when I said I hugged myself. Because when we realize the anger is within us, so first I think it's my mother or it's you or whoever, then I realized, no, it's within me. And that's a very important moment for me. Where do I go with that? When I realize I'm angry, do I get angry at my angry self? Or do I hold her and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like I would to you, to a friend. Like if I see you angry, I don't get angry at you saying, why are you angry? I'll hold you most of the time if I'm not the subject of your anger. But I don't do that with myself without awareness. I go at myself. It's like, really? After all this work, do you know how many years? Like, I can easily
that's a
go there.
common one for people, right? Really? After
Yeah.
all of these years, I'm still
Yes.
dealing with this? Yeah.
Yes. And especially if that's really your path. And this has been my path as long as I remember, both professionally and personally. But, there is always room. There is always room. I'm not going to tell off my angry self. I'm going to hold her. I'm going to let her be here and now, as you called it, and let her have an opportunity. Remember, the whole thing started because I was told off or ignored. So now I want to resolve it by telling off myself or ignoring myself. That doesn't work. It never worked before, and it's not going to work there. So that was a very crucial moment for me to hold myself and say, oh, I see you angry. I'm so sorry. Can I give you a hug? And I mean, I didn't say all these things. I just hugged myself. But you know what I mean? The process is, I'm sorry instead of, oh, really? Again? Like, when are you going to get it?
Yeah.
And we go there.
Yeah. Mitra, thank you so much for your vulnerability here. It was really a gift to hear you walk us through your personal experience. I know I myself received a lot of value from that, so thank you.
Thank you for starting the conversation. Remember, it all happened because you were grumpy.
Yeah, it was funny. We'll just share this. Uh, Before the interview started, I was like, Mitra, I look pretty tired, huh? She's like, yeah, you should probably wash your face with some cold water. I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to try and hide it. I'm going to own my tiredness. Let's just let's just work with this. And it's a metaphor for life, right?
Right.
We attune with where we're at. We work and we play with where we're at, and usually beautiful and surprising things come out of that. Yeah.
Yes, it does. So next time you're angry, just say, "Oh, goody. Oh, I'm angry.
It's
Opportunity to.
opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
for people who want to learn more about your work, Mitra, they can go to your website. It's mitramanesh.com. We're going to include it in the show notes. We hope you all have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.